the Chairman's Chaplain and the Chief Executive.
Good evening, members. May I introduce Reverend Kim, who is my local vicar down in Barling and covers a number of areas, from Rochford through to Barling to Great Wakering, Ashington, Canewdon, has a number of churches and is going to do prayers for us. Thank you.
First and foremost, I'd like to say how privileged and honoured I am to have been invited to be Mike's chaplain, and I will be seeing you and be assured of my prayers for all of you, not just tonight, but ongoing, as you lead the people of the Rochford district. So I'm going to say 3 very short prayers. The middle is the Lord's Prayer. If it's your tradition and you'd like to join in with me, please do feel free to do that. So let us pray. God of justice and mercy, we thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of the Rochford district. As we begin this meeting, help us to act with character and conviction, to listen with understanding and goodwill, to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service and remind us that we are stewards of your authority. Guide us to be the leaders the people of the Rochford district need. Help us to see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us and to treat all persons with the reverence your creation deserves. And finally, Father, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of all persons. We ask this as your children, confident in your goodness and love. Amen. Amen. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So a final blessing. In darkness and in light, in trouble and in joy, help us, Heavenly Father, to trust your love, to serve your purpose, and to praise your name, through Christ our Lord. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be with you and all whom you love this night and forevermore. Amen.
Thank you very much indeed, Kim. You are more than welcome to stay if you wish, but I do know you have a very busy schedule.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. God bless. Have a good meeting.
Be seated. Members, just a couple of items to mention before we get started. When I invite you to speak, there are microphones at both ends of the row on which you are seated. Please wait until you have the microphone in front of you before speaking. If you prefer, there is also a microphone and a lectern from which you are welcome to speak when I invite you to speak. All microphones are switched on, ready to speak, so you do not need to adjust them. However, can I ask you to speak clearly and directly into the microphone when I invite you to speak. Given the size of the room and the numbers of us present, when you wish to speak or vote, can you please raise your hand clearly, high in the air, like you used to do at school, so that you could be easily seen by all, and leave it up until I ask you to lower it. Members, you've all had some guidance on points of order, which have been circulated to you all. And I would ask that if you have any points of order to raise during the meeting, you should provide the reference to the relevant part of the Constitution. Agenda item 1, apologies. I have apologies from Councillor Constable, Councillor John Mason, Councillor Wilkinson. Are there any others? Okay. Thank you. Members, are there any declarations of interest? Okay, just to remind you, if anything comes up during the course of the meeting, please make it known at that time. Agenda item 3. I will now invite the Council Chief Executive, Mr. Jonathan Stevenson, to introduce the report to the revised pay policy statement for 2022/23.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, you have a copy of the pay policy statement in front of you. It's a revision to the statement that you received in February this year. It's part of the journey of the partnership with Brentwood Borough Council. We need a pay policy statement that aligns so we can have equal pay across the partnership. Happy to take any comments on the statement if required. Thank you.
Councillor, Mr. Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I think members may remember I did query the pay policy statement in January around the equality and diversity comments where it said should rather than will make a difference. I've had communication before this meeting with the Chief Executive, Jonathan Stevenson, around this, and I felt that the explanation he gave me around the reason why it does say should is very clear, very concise, and gives a proper understanding of what we do. I felt that it would be appropriate to include some of the wording that he used in his email to me to insert as an amendment into the equality and diversity section of the report, so it gives a full account of why it says should and a background of the other things that we do to make sure our equality and diversity within the pay policy does make a difference and does make sure we take account of gender and other issues. If I'm okay to read this out, this is slightly amended from the paragraph because it was a personal email and it referred to mine.
Councillor Hoy, just before you do, can I ask you to turn your microphone a little bit closer? Yes. So it's picking you up and tip it up slightly.
Okay. If that's it. Well done. That's cool. Is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So this is for insertion within the equality and diversity section of the report. The equality impact statement within this report is based wholly on the pay policy statement, not all the other factors within the pay and remuneration process for our employees. There are other factors such as recruitment, job evaluation, working arrangements, open brackets, part-time, oblique, full-time, close brackets, etc. This is why the statement says should and not will. This is because the statement on its own cannot fulfil this commitment. The Council will always endeavour to pay and remunerate our employees fairly, and the pay policy statement is one mechanism to ensure this happens, and hence why it is reviewed annually. That is the comments made by Jonathan Stevenson, and they're the ones I'm recommending for inclusion in the
Okay. Are you proposing that as an amendment, Councillor? Councillor.
That's amendment, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Wooden.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and as always, the eagle-eyed Councillor Hoy makes a very good point in respect of the pay policy, and I'm very happy to second his proposal. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak on this? Can't see who it is. Councillor Mr Cross.
Thank you, Chairman. Under additional payments for PO 20 and below, section 4.1, additional payments. I suspect
Councillor
that...
Cross, can I just stop you for a second? You need to be speaking to the amendment at the moment. So is this relevant to the amendment?
No, sorry.
Okay, all right. I'll come back to you when we've dealt with the amendment.
Thank you, Chairman.
Anybody else wish to speak to the amendment? Okay, members. I'll put the amendment to you. All those in favour, if you can show with your hands, please. Blow your hands. Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, that is 35 for, none against, no abstentions. Therefore, the amendment becomes part of the substantive motion. Councillor Cross, if you wish to raise your point.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies, members, for my earlier mistimed intervention. Under additional payments for PO 20, it's just a small point. I suspect the award in relation to maintaining 100% attendance may have been written into the structure before COVID. And my question really is, should we be awarding people to attend their place of work and give them a payment for attendance when the tendency may be to attend if they're not feeling too good and may indeed have COVID? So it's just a concern really that we're awarding people who may actually be ill to turn up for work. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr Stevenson, do you want to pick up on that point?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Cross. With regard to the statement you've got in front of you at 4.1, it is that area of the statement is exactly the same as the policy that came in February. The statement you've got in front of you now picks up the first three tiers of the organisation, and you raise a good point that area of the pay policy statement does need looking at and reviewing moving forward, especially when we look to align grades down from P20 down. So it's something that we'll take into account because obviously what we wouldn't want to do if we're looking to combine workforces as one, have different terms and conditions, different arrangements. I'm not taking a commitment that will leave the pay policy, that will come back to members, but we need to review to make sure that people's terms and conditions and arrangements are the same if we're going to work as one team across two councils. But that's a good point that will be reviewed. So.
Anybody else wish to speak? Okay, right. Members, we have one recommendation set out at paragraph 7.1 of the report on page 3.3 that the pay policy statement and Appendix 1 be adopted, including the amendment that we've just agreed. I will move the recommendation from the Chair. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Whitton, you second that, yes? Okay. Members, with a show of hands, those in favour? please lower your hands. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, members. That is unanimous. Okay, members, agenda item 4. I will now invite Councillor Leslie Butcher, Chairman of the Audit Committee, to introduce the report. Councillor Butcher.
Can you hear me? Members, as Chair of the Council's Audit Committee, I present this report to you which seeks Council approval to create a shared internal audit service with Basildon Borough Council from the 1st of July this year. It is proposed that this is achieved through a delegation of the Council's internal audit service to Basildon. This is permissible under the Local Government Act 1972. Basildon has already agreed to accept this delegation at its full council meeting on the 24th of March. And subject to the appropriate governance being undertaken by this council and finalisation of the supporting legal agreement being signed by both councils. Effective internal audit services have a vital role to play in helping the council achieve its objectives by ensuring the soundness of governance, risk management and control arrangements. To remain effective in an increasingly challenging environment, internal audit teams need to be able to provide the necessary quality, depth and coverage of assurance. Rochford currently has a small internal audit team of 2 officers, supplemented by Chief Audit Executive support, which is already provided by Basildon Council. However, due to the imminent retirement of Rochford's principal auditor, the Council has had to reconsider options for the delivery of its internal audit services going forward. This report sets out the different options considered, but recommends that option 3, a shared services solution, is implemented. This will have the advantage of enabling the Council to access a bigger pool of experienced internal audit resources and will provide greater resilience across both councils. Under the proposals, the other current Rochford employee will TUPE across to Basildon, with effect from the 1st of July, if this is agreed. Although Rochford has already entered a strategic partnership with Brentford Borough Council, Brentwood are not able to join up internal audit services at this time, as they are currently committed to an external contract. However, Rochford has an existing relationship with Basildon Borough Council to provide its chief auditor function, which has worked very well over the past few years. The proposed shared services is a natural extension of that successful relationship, and it has been very successful. Going forward, it may be an option for Brentwood Borough Council to also join the shared service arrangement in future. But of course, that will be up to them. Under the proposal, accountability for the adequacy of internal audit will remain firmly with the individual councils, who will remain responsible for fulfilling their obligations and duties under the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015. Each council will retain their own audit committee. Basildon Borough Council will recharge for their time based on actual cost incurred. It is anticipated that the annual cost will be slightly less than Rochford's existing internal audit staffing budget, but this will be closely monitored going forward. I therefore propose that the recommendations set out at paragraph 8.1 of the report are agreed. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer these. I'll refer to our officer, Naomi Lucas, who's our 151 officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butcher. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Gary Myers.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to second that recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Hoy.
Chairman, as you know, I can't resist anything other than to talk about audit sometimes. I was a bit concerned when I saw this as a key decision, because it did occur to me why we weren't linking more with Brentwood, given that was the direction we were appeared to be going in, but the report does set that out very clearly, and it does make a lot of sense. I have been on the audit committee in previous years, and I felt that Basildon have been very good to us. They've helped with our understaffing, and have done a very good job with Jim. And I was very surprised to see Jimmy's retirement age. I didn't realise he was that old, and he's proved good service in the past. The only question I've really got or concern is that Councillor Butcher mentioned that the cost would be slightly under our budgeted cost for internal audit. I know that we've always struggled to fill our internal audit roles, and I'm not sure that I just want clarity over whether that's a budgeted cost of our full staffing or the budgeted cost of what our actual staffing is. And I don't think this is something that we should be too worried about spending a proper budget on, because it is very important to the organisation. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Mrs Wilson.
Hello, Chair, thank you. My question is actually posed to an officer through yourself, if that's okay. Thank you. On reading this report, I just had concerns, not necessarily on the fact that there is the possibility that we might make £14,000 worth of savings, but I wondered if a cost ceiling was going to be put on top of this, on top of the budget already expected to spend. That was my first point. And my second point, mainly to the officer, is who will monitor the work that Basildon Council does? I'm assuming it will come back to the audit committee for us to have a look at. And at what timescale is that likely to happen? Because in the report there's nothing about feedback and how we would action that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Wilson. Mrs Darby.
Thank you, members. Just to answer Councillor Hoy's point, which was also linked to the second point, I think, about costs. So, yeah, we haven't deliberately set a budget which is under our current budget, if you like. The sort of deliverable number of audit hours is consistent with what we have in our current internal audit plan. Obviously, we're anticipating there will be some slight efficiencies through the joint working, which should result in small savings for the council. But as I say, the actual deliverable number of hours will be equivalent, and actually some of our current principal auditors' time is actually spent on sort of non-direct audit work, if you like, including some sort of assurance work. And I did allude to in the report that actually we may have to cover some of that other work that he does through other means. So some of that sort of spare budget capacity might have to be redirected to cover some of that. But in terms of the actual costs that are recharged to us from Basildon, yeah, there isn't an absolute cap, but they are going to charge us on a cost basis, so they're not actually making a profit, if you like, out of the arrangement. And essentially, it comes down to sort of looking at the various risks of different options, and even if we were to go out and sort of try and recruit our own auditor, there's no guarantee that we would be able to sort of create the resource at a particular level or cost. So I think we have to just accept that, the cost will be managed effectively by Basildon, and we'll obviously monitor that throughout the year. But yeah, so I can't give you an absolute guarantee that it won't exceed the cost that's in the report, but based on the number of hours they're expecting to provide, I would expect it to be roughly equivalent to the cost set out in the report. I hope that makes sense. In terms of the reporting and KPI responsibility, if you like, yeah, ultimately, as Section 151 officer, I will still be accountable for making sure that the internal audit plan is delivered for the council and overseeing the work that Basildon does. But obviously that will be subject to the same scrutiny that it is through Audit Committee at the moment. So Audit Committee will continue to receive quarterly update reports on the work that the service is providing. So I hope that provides the assurance that you're looking for. Okay.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Mrs Wilson?
It's coming from totally, it just always bothers me if there's no ceiling on expenditure. I've worked in organisations where, including with audits actually, where it doesn't take too much to ramp the cost up quite significantly. That was my only concern. But if the officer's happy with that, then I'm happy with that.
Okay, I'm sure the officer will take that on board. Councillor Ian Foster.
Chairman, just a small point of clarification, please. On page 4.3, the last bullet point in item 3.4 talks about commercial opportunities. And my question is, would that be of benefit to Rochford District Council, or would it just be of benefit to Basildon Council?
Mr Lucas, do you want to respond?
Yeah, thank you. I think that point's, yeah, alluding to the fact that, yeah, this shared service arrangement is obviously between Basildon and Rochford at the moment, but as we said in the report, there may be an opportunity for other councils potentially to join that. So we've said that Brentwood may consider that in the future possibly, and there's a possibility that other councils may wish to join that arrangement in future as well. So I think that's what that point is alluding to, really, that we obviously want to try and make efficiencies and sort of manage it in a commercial way as much as possible.
Back, Chairman. Obviously, I didn't make my question very clear.
Sorry.
I understand it talks about commercial opportunities. My question was whether that would provide financial benefit to Rochford District Council out of those commercial opportunities.
Yeah, so if there was commercial benefit to the partnership in future, I think, yeah, it is a shared service and it is a sort of collaborative arrangement, so we'd have to look at how those potential benefits would be shared across the partnership. We haven't sort of specifically set that out at this stage, but yeah, I think that would be open to negotiation with Basildon.
Okay, any other members? Councillor Mr Sharp. Can you wait for the microphone, please?
I beg your pardon. Sorry.
Start again.
I just want to ask whether there's any indication here with our external auditor and whether Basildon Borough Council have the same external auditor.
Thank you. I don't think there's any direct implications in terms of our external audit arrangements. We currently have EY. Basildon have BDO, so they have a different auditor. But essentially the work that the external auditor does is completely independent. Historically, the external audit may have kind of placed some reliance on the work of internal audit, but that's not really the case anymore, so that they don't sort of place reliance on the evidence base collected by internal audit during the year. They do all of their own work independently, so I don't think there's any direct kind of read across, if you like, between internal and external audit that would have an impact on this arrangement. But just as a general point, the external audit arrangements with Public Sector Appointments Committee are due to be retendered in the next couple of years anyway, so we don't actually know who our external auditor will be in the future anyway at this point after the next year or so, because that will be subject to that arrangement.
Okay. Councillor Sharp, you happy with the response?
Yes, I'm happy with that response. Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else? Councillor Mrs Mason.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Through you, could I just ask the officer...
Mrs Mason, can you just bring your mic a little closer, please?
I'm usually quite loud. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
That's much better.
Good. Right. Through you, Chairman, I'd like to ask the officer on the recommendation 8.2 that the Assistant Director is being authorised, Assistant Directors I should say, be authorised to approve the terms of the joint working arrangement with effect from the 1st of July 2022. How long is that agreement going to last for? I would expect there to be an end date on it for renewal and reassessment.
Thank you. Through the Chair, if that's all right for you.
Yeah, please.
So this arrangement is a kind of, Section 113 arrangement is a kind of delegated authority. So in principle, the arrangement will continue until such time as Council agrees it doesn't want it to continue anymore. But in practical terms, I think what we've said is we will obviously review it after the first year. We're anticipating that the sort of minimum length of the agreement will probably be 3 years, but we will annually review it. But there's no kind of set contract, if you like, because it's not actually a contractual arrangement, it's a delegation, so it will continue, as I say, until such time as either council doesn't want it to continue anymore.
Councillor Mrs Mason, any follow up on that?
Can I just come back on that? I understand.
I can't see. You got the mic there still? Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you again.
Yes, thank you for that. That clarifies part of it. But is there any sort of notice period that would have to be given?
So I think
if so, what is it, please?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
So again, I suppose in formal kind of contractual terms, there's not a notice period as such because it's not a contract, but in practical terms, I think the service level agreement or the joint working agreement will state that it would be fair and reasonable for us to give a minimum of 12 months notice, because in practical terms it would take a little while to unwind those arrangements. So I think that's the kind of level of time that we'd be talking about to make a change of policy on that.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, members, we have two recommendations set out in paragraph 8.1 of the report on page 4.5. One, that the Council's internal audit service be delegated to Basildon Borough Council under sections 101, 111 and 113 of the Local Government Act 1972 and any other relevant legislation with effect from the 1st of July 2022. Two, the Assistant Director Resources, in consultation with the Assistant Director of Legal and Democrat, be authorised to approve the final terms of the joint working arrangement and to enter into all necessary and appropriate contracts and agreements to implement delivery from the 1st of July 2022. Members, those recommendations have been proposed and seconded. Are you happy that I take them en bloc? Okay, members, those in favour, please indicate. Thank you, members. Low your hands. That, I'm advised, is unanimous. Thank you, members. Okay. Members, that concludes the business of this extraordinary meeting, and I declare the meeting closed at 20:05. We will take a 5-minute comfort break before we start the next extraordinary meeting. Thank you, members.
No, it's not on. All right. Back. Yeah. Could you please take your seats? Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, members. Been quite some time since our last meeting. I think about 10 minutes. Please bear with me. I need to go through the same procedures again. Members, when I invite you to speak, there are microphones at both ends of the row on which you are sitting. Please wait until you have one of the microphones in front of you before speaking. If you prefer, there is also a microphone, a lectern from which you can and are welcome to speak when I invite you to speak. All microphones are switched on ready for you to speak, so you do not need to adjust them. However, can I ask you to speak clearly and directly into the microphone when I invite you to speak? Given the size of the room and the numbers of us present, when you wish to speak or vote, can you please raise your hand clearly, and as I said, as like when you were at school, high in the air, so Joe can see you, so it can be easily seen, and leave it up until you are asked to lower it. Members' guidance on points of order have been circulated to you all, and I would ask that if you have any points of order to raise during the meeting, you should provide the reference, the relevant part of the Constitution. Members, agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Councillor Roger Constable, Councillor John Mason, Councillor Wilkinson. Are there any others? I don't think anybody's disappeared during the interlude. Okay. Agenda item 2, members, are there any declarations of interest? No. And again, members, I will remind you if something comes up during the course of the meeting, please indicate clearly and we will take that into account. Agenda item 3, motions on notice. Councillor Newport, can you please introduce your motion on notice?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for this opportunity to bring forward our motion on notice tonight after such a long time. I think the penny has sort of finally dropped that we do have a wide issue with litter in our district, and it's been ongoing for a very...
Councillor Newport, can you bring the microphone just a little closer?
Is that better?
Yeah, perhaps tip it up a little bit more. I don't know if you can do that. That's it.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's been well noted now that the ongoing issue with litter in our district has been ongoing for a significant amount of time. However, I find myself with my motion that a litter strategy has now been put forward to review. So on that basis, Chairman, I will work on review with the points that we make in our motion and take it forward through review for recommendations back to the portfolio holder or council respectively, and on that basis I wish to withdraw this motion tonight, please.
Thank you, Councillor Newport.
Thank you.
That's quite easily dealt with. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. The second motion that we have on notice is to be introduced by Councillor Lisa Newport. Because of it is quite a lengthy one, I am prepared to give just a little bit of latitude in the time for you to present it, but please don't run away with it during the course, and I will rein you in if necessary.
Thank you, Chair. Please be mindful that the dates in the motion in front of you are different, because obviously the motion was first to be put forward last year. This motion proposes that the Council actively supports the right for everyone, especially women and girls, to be safe from violence and harassment, and will commit to working in partnership with key stakeholders as part of its wider community safety approach. This motion calls on the Council to consolidate various initiatives and publish a policy that gives information and clarity to all, so that our residents can rest assured that the Council is doing its utmost to tackle violence against women and girls, and that information to empower women and girls to feel safe is both published, promoted and easily accessible. This Council agrees the following. 1. Believes everyone should have the right to be safe from violence and harassment on our streets. 2. Recognises that the killing of Sarah Everard has again brought the issue of behaviour towards women and girls and their safety to the forefront. 3. Acknowledges it's not just women who are at risk, but that any individual may be vulnerable to an attack for various reasons. This Council also notes 4. There are already many excellent initiatives and campaigns by local and national organisations aimed at safeguarding the welfare of individuals. For example, Got Your Back, Ask for Annie and the Ask for Angela scheme. 5. That this Council is the only South Essex local authority to have a housing option officer trained as an independent domestic violence advocate. 6. Violent incidents are thankfully rare in the Rochford district, and our police force already work closely with council officials to combat sexual harassment and other types of aggression. 7. However, every occurrence of intimidation or attack is one too many. Council therefore, 8, resolutely rejects behaviour and actions which may cause women and girls from any background to have to modify their activities in order to feel safe. 9. Champions the right of women and girls to be protected from violence and harassment in public places within Rochford District. 10. Believes that the principle should be embedded in our council strategies going forward. 11. Will actively support schemes such as Ask for Angela and call on licensed businesses to participate and to take active steps to ensure harassment and sexual intimidation is taken seriously through participation in this scheme. 12. Calls on all council departments and other bodies responsible for public spaces, for example, housing associations, parish councils, schools, transport providers, to improve the security of public spaces by encouraging them to review lighting in streets, car parks and parks, CCTV provision and other pertinent means to improve safety. 13. Calls on schools, colleges, universities and youth organisations to renew their efforts to promote a safety and respect for all agenda amongst their students. 14. That the leader of Rochford District Council ensures that white ribbon accreditation is secured for the organisation and promote the wider awareness of the accreditation in our district. As part of this, appoint a male councillor as an ambassador, mark the White Ribbon Day, which is on, I don't think it's the 25th of November now, I think it's the 22nd of November, each year with a fundraising event, and encourage participation amongst council staff and local primary and secondary schools. 15, we request an update on progress on these matters to council in 6 months. and councillors are reminded of their public sector equality duty, which requires a council to consider or think about how their policies or decisions may affect people who are protected under the Equality Act. I move this motion with the updated dates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Newport. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Mrs. Mason.
Yes, I would like to second the motion, but I will speak later. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for this motion. I doubt that there are many members, organisations or indeed any other councils in this country that would disagree with the sentiments of this motion. It goes without saying that this council actively supports the right for everyone, especially women and girls, to be safe from violence and harassment on our streets. The safety of our residents is paramount. There is currently a lot of work going on nationally and locally to progress this agenda. Officers currently sit on a newly formed county-wide safety advisory group, and I am a member of the Safer Essex Board, and what I have learned from this board is that it is key we make sure that all partners have shared awareness about what we are all doing, as lots of projects are underway. In addition, the joint Castle Point and Rochford Community Safety Partnership, which I currently hold the position of Vice Chairman, has recently adopted violence against women and girls as a standing agenda item, so that regular updates are received and actions to follow. However, there should be no jump to solutions, and all county partners have agreed we should understand what Essex looks like and understand what the findings are from the police insight data, which is currently underway. In the meantime, we continue as a council to support all those projects that come through this central board. As a portfolio holder for safety, I fully support this motion, but would like to propose that it be enhanced by not only noting its contents, but giving our ongoing commitment to continue to work in partnership with all responsible bodies, including the county-wide Safety Advisory Group, Safer Essex Partners and local community safety network, in order to achieve the objectives set out in this motion, and report on progress to the Review Committee at the time of the Community Safety Partnerships annual update. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Williams. Do you have a seconder?
I would like to second that.
Councillor McPherson. Do you wish to speak on it?
Thank you, Chairman. I wholeheartedly agree with your motion, Councillor Mrs. Newport, and the update from Councillor Arthur Williams. Hopefully everybody's in agreement. If we can enhance that in any way, it's got to be good for everyone. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Members, does anybody wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Mr. Hoy.
Apologies, Chairman, I didn't quite catch what the amendment was. Could it just be read out again, please?
Right. Okay. I'll read it out. And this is from the portfolio holder for community safety. I fully support this motion, but would like to propose that it be enhanced by not only noting its contents, but giving our ongoing commitment to continue to work in partnership with all responsible bodies, including the county-wide Safety Advisory Group, Safer Essex Partners, and local community safety network, in order to achieve the objectives set out in this motion, and report on the progress to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee at the time of the Community Safety Partnership annual update. Is that correct, Councillor Williams? Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Hoy.
I did write something down in October, and it's been taking quite a long time to come to full council. I'm not going to read out what I wrote then. I don't think we need to. It seems like we're all in full support of
This is just purely to the amendment, is it?
Yeah, that's
Councillor Hoyt,
right.
yep. Okay.
To the amendment. I do support the amendment. I think that adding the other organisations will be helpful, and I will support it.
Anybody else wish to speak to the amendment? Okay. Okay, members, we now take a vote on the amendment. Those in favour, please indicate. Thank you, members. That is unanimous. That now becomes part of the motion, which is item 16. Any questions on the substantive motion? Councillor Mr. Hoy.
Around the White Ribbon organisation and the appointment of a male councillor to represent this council and to push forward this policy, would that be an appointment to an outside body, or would that be an appointment by a portfolio holder? Thank you.
Councillor Williams, do you wish to respond to that?
That is yet to be decided.
Sorry, we can't hear you. Can you?
Yeah, thank you. As of yet, that hasn't been decided how we will take that forward, but it will be considered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Mr. Wooden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No decent or right-minded person couldn't be appalled at the abhorrent murder of Sarah Everard last year. Indeed, any murder is absolutely tragic and awful, but that reached new heights of awfulness. I'm particularly pleased that Councillor Mrs. Newport has brought this motion before us this evening. It's a shame it's taken a few months, but we know the reasons why, but it was very important that we did take time out to talk about these issues and what we can do as an authority. And I think it sets out extremely well by the various points what we should be doing. And I think it's right and proper that we take time to reflect on that. I am very proud of the fact that this administration set £100,000 aside for community safety initiatives in the district. A large part of that is set aside for CCTV, possibly in Rayleigh, possibly in Rochford. And that is an activity still ongoing with the respective town and parish councils. But in addition to that, we wanted to give the opportunity to all parishes to have £2,500 match funded by themselves to make £5,000 for a community safety initiative within their own parish. And I actually would urge all councillors across the district, bearing in mind the parish arrangements, that we really press to take advantage of that funding. I waste no time in any parish council that I go to in reminding them that there is that money. And not only did we make the commitment last financial year, but we renewed it this financial year so that we accommodated the budget round of the parish councils. So I think when I look at item 12, I really would urge all councillors to impress on their parish councils to take advantage of that offer. With regard to item 14, I have absolutely no problem with item 14, but I just wonder whether to strengthen it, bearing in mind it is the portfolio holder with community safety responsibilities that has the various meetings with the various authorities, the county, the police, and other agencies. I really wonder whether or not, certainly I'm very happy to endorse it, but I think we ought to widen it to make sure that it is the portfolio holder with responsibility for community safety who reaches into areas that I don't reach, is that person. But I don't in any way want to dilute the point on item 14. So I'm just thinking of a practical arrangement where the portfolio holder for community safety is engaged more than I am. So I actually want to strengthen it rather than weaken it by saying that I'm opting out. I'm happy to be there, but it is that portfolio holder. But without any doubt, totally support the motion before us tonight. Thank you.
Councillor, Mr Newport.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm actually very happy to hear Councillor Wootton refer back to the Community Safety Fund. Because last week I contacted the portfolio holder about that fund and was told that the fund was closed. So it's quite enlightening to hear that it's open and available. So all I would ask is that all councillors are given guidance on what that fund can be used for again, please. And
Councillor Newport, can we keep it to the motion concerned? If you wish to talk to Councillor Wootton or the portfolio holder outside of the meeting, I'm sure that they will advise you accordingly on the fund.
yeah, so so the point is that as we're talking about community safety, is having guidance how we can use that. And just one last point I'd like to make is that I would also like to, I would support the motion, but I'd also like to give thanks to Louisa Moss, who supported Councillor Lisa Newport with this motion and put a great deal of effort and work into it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Newport. I'm sure that is noted. Okay. Anybody else? Councillor, Mrs Mason. I was just making sure there was nobody else wanted to sneak in before you.
I'm not that paranoid about being last, but thank you for the courtesy. Thank you, Mr Chairman. I welcome the support from the leader for this important motion, and I also am pleased that the portfolio holder agrees that the safety of all residents should be paramount and indeed has taken the trouble to strengthen the motion. This council should be proactive rather than reactive, and I am pleased that this has been demonstrated tonight in supporting the substantive motion, and I welcome the support given from everyone in this room. Thank you.
Councillor, Mrs Newport, do you wish to sum up on this before we put it to vote?
Thank you, Chair. Not really a summing up. I'd just again like to thank Louisa Moss for everything that she's done in supporting and helping with this. And I would just like to make the councillors aware that there are some white ribbons on the tables where Helen and Veronica are, if you want to collect one to support the white ribbon campaign. Thank you.
Okay, members, I'm very much hoping that you don't require me to read all of the items out again, and that you will be happy to accept the vote on block, including the amended item, which I think makes it 16 in all. So are members happy for me to take that on block? Okay. Members, in that case, those in favour, please indicate. Thank you, members. That is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, members, just to remind you, there are some white ribbons. I've been handed one here at the table just as you leave if you wish to collect one on your way out. On that basis, members, I will close the meeting at 20:37. Thank you very much indeed, members. Nice to see you all.
Please be upstanding.